Just got toned out for a structure fire.
All right.
We go.
Look how fancy we are today. Sharing screens, sharing music. You can hear the music, right, Scott?
Oh yeah.
We are upgrading Tech Talk Tuesday.
Thanks, Kevin. I know you did that for me.
So, without sharing too much and going too deep into that, we are officially live, and it is Tech Talk Tuesday here. Really excited to have both Cy Narayan and Dave Williams from Microsoft going from zero to AI agent in 60 minutes here. We got our fellow hosts, Scott Roseberry and Will Brocious, who will be taking the helm here. But I know I'm personally excited about this. I've been deep into all things vibe coding and AI agent building myself for about the last 6 months. So, excited to learn from some of the other fellow, not going to call you experts, I'll call you practitioners. And we're going to be joining you along this journey here today. So thrilled to hear the Scott and Will and whatever platform you're watching this on, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. Fire up the chat. We will bring those questions in from those channels to here, and we'll answer them live. The recording will be live on all these channels here later. So excited to dive in today. Scott and Will, take it away, and I'll be monitoring all the chats.
Yeah, well, I'm excited about today. We're going to talk about a brand new subject you probably never heard of called artificial intelligence. Pretty new in the fire service. But man, we got Cy and Dave with us, two colleagues we've collaborated with for several years now. And Cy and I've done several collaborations together. So really excited about today. I think it's going to be a great learning day for everybody, and more of kind of a workshop. I think people are actually going to take something away from this they can do like the next hour when they can start working with AI.
And I'm equally as excited. And of course, because I'm excited, the fire gods have done what they've done. And I'm watching. We just got toned out for a structure fire. I'm just trying to see if it's working. If it's working, you may see me jet out the door. If it's not, I'll be sitting here. I've got my Copilot pulled up on another screen, and I'm ready to nerd out. So looking forward to this episode. A lot of anticipation about this one here. It's good
Cy,
stuff.
why don't you introduce yourself? Tell about who you are.
Sure. Hey, well, first of all, thanks for having us. I know we've done a few of these together at TSI and some other locations, but it's nice to do it live and kind of embarrass yourself along the way, which is great. So nice to meet everyone. Sai Narayan, I'm an industry advisor on our worldwide public sector team here at Microsoft. And Dave, you want to say hello?
Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, happy to be here as well. These are always exciting and really interested to watch Cy knock this out in 60 minutes. When I saw this posted to LinkedIn, I called him and said, "We're going to do what?" So really excited about this, looking forward to it. And yeah, I'm the solutions manager for worldwide public safety and justice, which means I kind of own the go-to-market strategy around this, but work very closely with Cy and the other industry advisors. So back to you guys.
Hey, so Cy, why don't you start off? Tell us what is artificial intelligence?
Boy, that's a really um, wide question. Well, everyone, we talk a lot about AI, and I'm actually gonna, how good is LinkedIn Live or having someone from Microsoft with no PowerPoint? So I'm actually gonna put, just for the sake of my friends who love PowerPoint, I kind of have just about 3 or 4 slides, right? So, um, I mean, AI is not new. Everyone knows AI, everything from machine learning to deep learning to now generative AI with the rise of ChatGPT and OpenAI, and now pretty much every other person building something in the generative AI space. Um, and I know that when we say AI these days, I think pretty much categorically 90% of us are talking about generative AI. We're not really talking about the traditional AI as we call it these days, which is kind of scary if you think about it. And that's sort of how much AI has, or generative AI has democratized across the board and given people access to artificial intelligence like there's no other technology has, and it's spread across the board. And so We're probably going to spend a little bit more time today, a little bit on the enterprise side of it. Talk a little bit about how do you put it to practice in a more enterprise governed manner. So, you're not doing this out in the wild. You have a little bit of assurance in terms of what you're doing, whether it comes to your data, whether it comes to your models you're interacting with, whether it comes to your enterprise security and such. And that's sort of the framing under which we're going to do this thing in so-called 60 minutes. Um, you all said do build an agent in 60 minutes, and Dave and I said we're going to build two. So we're
Oh,
going to try to do the
okay.
first one in 5 minutes, and then the other one probably over the next 30 minutes or so. And then we can hopefully, like I said, either talk about it and be successful at it or embarrass ourselves and just lick our wounds and walk away. Either way, it's going to be fun. But in the enterprise framing, just want to call this out. Your data is your data. The data is not being used to train your models as long as you're using some of the enterprise tool sets. Your data and models are protected. And Microsoft actually, as part of your enterprise agreement that you sign up for, has a copyright commitment where if you use our enterprise tools in the manner we just prescribe them to be used, and you get pulled into any sort of copyright claims, etc., Microsoft would come defend your position. And so that's a huge step for some of
Yeah.
our enterprise customers. In terms of the framing of the agent, um, conversation, I think agents are that's a nebulous discussion as well in terms of how do you define an agent, right? I mean, like you all probably face this every day. Well, we just figured we'll put these in three big buckets. There are agents that just retrieve information. These could be something as simple as, hey, pick up a report or give me some stats or ask a question against a data set. That's just an ask and answer kind of an agent. Then you have agents that do some routine tasks. Everyone talks about task automation, administrative automation, etc. That's the bucket here.
Mm.
And then this concept of autonomous agents, where agents are doing things behind the scenes and surfacing up certain things and certain bits and pieces of information so that the human in the loop is then, in a responsible manner, using that information from the agent to make some of these decisions. And I don't know, Dave, you have any thoughts on that? And maybe we'll open this up for a little conversation between the group here and
Yeah.
then kind of go into the details of this.
I guess the only thing I would add here is that we tend to think of this as kind of a journey left to right, but the reality is this can go both directions. So as you're thinking about these things, where you find things that really work autonomously well and fit within the framework of your organization's security model and the things you're comfortable with, you can use those. And if you get there and you find out, oh, I really don't like that just happening by itself, you can always step it back to a task based agent, right? So it's not all or nothing. It really can adapt to the way that you want to operate.
How do you all see this in terms of your day to day? Because you all know this better than we do.
Yeah, the first interaction I ever had with AI is probably like a couple years ago, and someone said, "You can log on to this site and it can write a song for you." I'm like, "No, it can't." So that's what I'm waiting for. So I was like, "Which agent will write me songs?"
See,
But
well, the question back to you is, do you want the song showing up in your inbox on Monday morning every week, or do you want to actually
that's
ask a question
but you
to
see
make
how
that song?
far AI has
See?
grown. But I say all that as a joke is that, that was only maybe 2 years ago, Sai, right? That I thought this is cool. It can write a song and I can go show coworkers. To now, I'm using AI to review policies or to help me even craft some difficult emails where I just can't find my words. So very simple things,
Yeah,
all the way into more detailed things where I'm trying to get it to figure out how to compare a budget and see if there's a cost analysis that I'm missing somewhere, to see how far it has grown and how far we in the fire service has grown from writing songs about coworkers to this thing is like an assistant sitting next to me, helping, keep me out of trouble.
right. True
Yeah,
that.
I would see if you can tell us the difference too, because I think a lot of us have heard AI workflows and AI agents are a little bit different. So what would be the difference between the workflow and the agent?
You want to take that one, Dave?
I would say an agent is probably part of a process within a workflow. A workflow being what are the multiple steps and tasks that you take in a process to start from, say, no policy to a policy that's been routed through a team of experts to be marked up and then eventually approved, and then agents that do separate tasks within that workflow.
And that can be orchestrated together as part of that workflow, right? That's the whole concept of agent orchestration, which we won't get into today because that's a whole different discussion. So we're probably going to touch on these two tools today, personal productivity. Hey, can anyone build an agent? I highly recommend just get your hands dirty and build one because, well, anybody can do it. And then we'll touch a little bit on sort of the low code way to do it, and maybe we'll show an example of how to do that. This is the one that we'll probably spend most of the time on. There is an entire pro code development platform in our infrastructure that goes from everything from model choice. I think we have like hundreds and hundreds of models from multiple providers available to how to do this in a secure, compliant manner and build out these agentic workflows that are purpose built. And so I would highly recommend checking out, the Foundry ecosystem for that. But today we're probably going to focus a little bit more on the personal productivity and sort of the low code piece of it. That's our slides for the day. Yay.
That's it. I'm monitoring this fire, and I may have to go. Hold on. Somebody's coming to get me. You go, Scott. Take it.
All right.
One question I have, and Scott maybe kind of just alluded to this, but I think a lot of people, when they think of AI right now, they think of the chatbot, whether it's in GPT or Claude. But this difference between I am just talking to a chat bot to an agent. Explain to me the difference between just a regular chat feature function to the actual agent and kind of what that looks like from interfacing to it to the actual infrastructure of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's many ways to describe it. I would say chat is a function of an agent, right? The agent could be chat is a mode of communicating with an agent, but there are many ways in which the agent could interact with the user. And so some of those could be simply just background processes that are running. Think of the old cron jobs that people have probably built out in their old workflows. Those could be, for lack of a word, agentified. Chat is just one means of communicating. And I'll probably, when we dive into the tool sets, that might actually be more, uh, be more of
And
a
I would add
source
to
as
that.
well. Yeah.
I would add to that answer too, Kevin, that chat is reliant on what you ask,
Mhm.
right? You're going to type in a set of instructions, you're going to give it a prompt, it's going to answer your question. An agent, you may have to put a prompt in just to get something started, or you may not. But the reality is that there's a system prompt that's in the background. So you're getting a much more repeatable, grounded process. And you'll see that as Sai works through it. So it's really the difference of walking up to a stranger and asking a question and walking to the help desk or the kiosk or a concierge and getting kind of expert advice because they know exactly contextually what it is you're wanting to know.
Yep. So with that, let's jump right in because I know we want to do a little bit of build and conversation. Whoa, Will's back. That was quick.
Somebody said they don't need no admin chief at the fire. I don't know what that meant, but I'm gonna stay here with y'all. Side, there's something
Well,
called chaos. Chief
Yeah.
has arrived on scene, so they don't want any chaos out there. I'm gonna stay here with y'all.
The problem is Will shows up with this calculator and starts telling them they can't use that much hose because we can't afford to buy more. How much
Side,
that water costs.
if the fire hears that I'm coming, it puts itself out. It already knows. So just putting it out
wow.
there.
That's the
Go ahead.
agent.
That's the agent.
So
Well,
basically, though,
that's exactly what agents don't do. Just so you
yeah,
know, agents don't put out fires, and I want to just
an
keep that
agent does
framing.
a repeatable job for you over and over again, right?
That's right.
Like I need to have certain data every Monday morning when I walk in from like our RMS runs, and the agent goes and pulls that data and prepares it for me, and every Monday morning it's there for me on my desktop.
Yep.
And the difference between that and doing it with just a straight chat interface is you could get that output, but you would have to put in an input, and your output may be varied day to day unless you give it a template every time that you ask that question.
Okay.
So let's go back in here. I'm using the M365 Copilot app. on this agent build for the first one. Again, I have a license which says premium right here. I'm a licensed user of M365 Copilot. Some of these capabilities are for licensed users, others are for not. But for the agent process, the personal productivity agent, you obviously need to have a license or at least have some way of consuming the credits around the agent build out process. So I'm going to use an enterprise version. So I'm going to start with something real simple. And I was like thinking about, hey, what can we build as a personal productivity agent? And then I thought about Tech Talk Tuesday. And then I said, why don't we build out a fire tech advisor for a chief officer so they could have access to Tech Talk Tuesday on a 24/7 basis
I
and
like
not
that. How
just
about
have
you,
to
Will?
wait for a podcast. And so I'm actually going to build out a personal productivity agent. Now, some people will be like, hey, I have no idea how to build an agent. I'm going to say, just ask Copilot how to build an agent. So I'm actually literally going to ask Copilot, how do I build this? And I'm actually going to say, come up with a prompt to build a fire tech advisor agent in M365 Copilot, inspired by IAFC Tech Talk Tuesday series. I'm going
And
to
so I've
say,
been doing that when I can't figure out the right
yeah,
prompt. I've been
yeah,
asking it what prompt I should ask.
yeah. This is an agent that is supposed to simplify. I'm going to say, tell me what would be the highest value for a chief officer?
And highest value in what?
How about this? Something like simplify complex technology topics
Yeah,
into terms that anyone can understand? No, I won't say that.
a high school student. How about that?
Nice. All right, fair enough. Okay, let's see what kind of prompting this comes back with.
I'm doing the same thing, Si, trying to figure it out.
Here you go. So that's what it's telling me to come back with. It gives me a role, a persona, and then it comes back with the system prompts. A system prompt essentially is you're telling the agent, this is your system prompt, this is your guidelines under which you operate. And no matter what, just kind of don't deviate from these guidelines. So things like you're not a product salesperson, so don't start pitching products right out the gate. You're not a software engineer. You're not an academic or a policy expert. So those are important things. And then how do you explain like simple language, short terms, et cetera, et cetera, and what kind of content areas to focus on. It's a pretty elaborate system prompt. Fire service context is mandatory. You probably want that. And this is sort of the Tech Talk Tuesday style, right? So have a plain English, why this matters, your real world example, blah, blah, blah. Short bullets, key takeaway, and real world example. There's some guardrails in here as well. Now, I could take this as is.
Mhm.
I'm actually going to do something a little different before I come back here. I'm actually going to copy this and I'm actually going to go into this new agent tab here, and I'm going to paste the exact same thing over here. I'm actually telling it instructions on what to build. So there's two ways to do this. You can take the system prompts there and paste it in here, or you can go to the agent builder and tell it what you want to build. And the agent builder is just basically going to come back with a basic framework right out the gate.
Very cool.
And while it's doing that, you know, sing some Jeopardy music here. So
This is cool. I did one side. I'm making it. It's called itself Budget Ranger.
do that. So it automatically pulled up the agent builder, called
Wow.
it Fire Tech Advisor. I don't like that name. I'm going to call it Fire Tech Talk all day, not Tuesday. Simplifies
Copyrighted.
complex fire
Yeah,
technology
It's copyrighted,
concepts.
Si.
yeah, yeah.
Pardon me, it's not for high school students, it's for chief officers. So this is exactly why human in the loop, right? It
Yeah.
misunderstood what I was trying to say. Perfect. Inspired by IFC Tech Talk Tuesday series, explanations, emergency response, communications tools, data. Sure, that's fine. That's good enough. Help understand fire tech concepts. So this is the most important segment. Dave, you want to talk a little bit about system instructions? And I can kind of like, while you do that, I'm going to tweak some of the stuff here.
Yeah, sure. So I think the important thing to understand about the system instructions is is that unlike how you would write a prompt it's expanded beyond that, right? You're giving it guardrails, you're telling it what you do and don't want it to do. So don't talk about the police, don't give me a good barbecue recipe, whatever that looks like. So give it some framework. And then you can get even more complicated where you start to put things into it that tell it how to revert. Like if there's a problem, I want you to go back to this. Or I want you to use these skills. I want you to follow these kinds of steps. And you can put things in here like templates. So if you, for instance, have, as Chief Rosenberry said, hey, I want something every Monday morning. I want it to land in my inbox, and I always want it to be formatted the exact same way. You can give it that and say, and use this format, right? So that's that system prompt it still will take a prompt and you can still ask questions. And depending on how Sai builds this in terms of grounding and knowledge and whether or not he enables the web, it'll still answer questions outside of that, but it'll have this framework that it follows that's much more repeatable than what you get normally.
So this is a personal agent builder. It's not meant to be overly onerous on the agent building process, right? So I have some examples of how I want the interaction to be. Very simple. Follow up and closing, feedback and iteration, error handling. And you can add more about it, be respectful, be kind, do this, do that, whatever, right? Address every answer with chief in the front. You can do all that with just system prompting. And then you go in here. Now I could potentially search all websites, leave it open to the internet. I could specify specific sources or websites I wanted to go into. So think of it like I created a tech repository, then I want to focus this just on that tech repository. I wanted just to focus on certain assets. Or I could actually add other data sources that are outside of my local ecosystem,
Wow.
where
I like it.
information is coming from. I could create documents and charts and other things as output artifacts. I want to make some images. And at the bottom here are some suggested prompts. So I don't, what a smart firefighting is a very generic term. I don't want that. But these are some interesting startup prompts that it automatically came up with. I could add other startup prompts here, right? And essentially when I'm ready, and again, I'm not going to connect it to other data sources and others for now. I could add it to a SharePoint repository also if I have a tech roadmap. I'm just going to basically try it, try tab before I create it. And I'm actually going to say something like, let's see, how explain digital radios versus analog. I don't know, just coming up with one. And so this is sort of like my own personal playground. And right, I'm trying different things. I'm looking at what kind of answers come back. This is a big picture. Look at that.
Wow. That's not a song, but it's cool.
It's cool. I could make it a song. So that could be a system prompt. And I could say something like, give the answers in a certain format,
Sai,
but you can see.
I
Make it
do want
all
to touch on
haiku.
something you said, Sai. You said human in the loop. And I think
100%.
that's what every listener needs to understand. This AI, great, right? It's a tool. You pick up a tool and you misuse it, you can get yourself in trouble. Human in the loop, review your stuff, make sure you know what you're doing. Don't just give it a command and walk away and hit print, is what I've learned from the limited use of AI that I have.
Look at
I,
this. Actually calls out the cliff effect,
Wow.
which is a term that I know is used quite a bit in the world of digital versus analog. But go ahead, Dave, you were saying something.
oh, I was just going to say, the Chief Brocious was talking about is we have to, I think, as a species using AI, we have to discipline ourselves to trust but verify, um, because you see instance almost every day you'll see something pop up on LinkedIn or out in the news where somebody has gotten comfortable with what they're getting for answers
Yeah.
and they just take it and they run with it. And then they find themselves in hot water in whatever type of organization they're in, whether they're making a false arrest or, they're just putting bad information out there. So I really do think it's trust but verify, and you
Yeah.
have to discipline yourself to do it because it will be very convincing. I mean, Copilot started saying, here's the no kidding, grounded, absolute truth. But that's like your kid telling you that. I'm going to be honest with you, and then they lie to you anyway. So you got to be careful, right?
I mean,
Would you
this
say
is,
would you
yeah.
say that the hallucinations are getting better? Like there's fewer hallucinations with AI than there used to be?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
agents is a great way to reduce that,
Correct.
Scott, by grounding, right?
Because you put those guardrails in there.
Mhm.
So
That's right.
yeah, okay.
That's right.
I could literally
You'll
go
never
in
get rid of
here.
them, but you'll reduce them.
Yeah, I mean, I could literally go in here and turn off all the web sources and just point it to policy documents or internal documents. Or if I have a tech
Nice.
roadmap and I said, hey, just focus on my tech roadmap, stick that in SharePoint, point it to that.
Sai, speak that one a little bit more with knowledge. So if you were thinking about, let's say, with Will and he in his job with
Yep.
ultimately trying to make sure that he is like he almost had a call he was about to go on, and when thinking of that, maybe he couldn't go or for whatever reason, and there's 8 policy documents in terms of
Mhm.
how once you leave the fire department and going to the scene, how you should respond, and
Mhm.
maybe there's a city document, there's a fire department document. Could you upload those
Yeah.
5 SOPs that are all between 4 and 300 pages long, and then ultimately make have that where would that would become its sort of source of truth reference, and then be able to query it, or talk me
100%.
through that?
100%. And that, so essentially you can put them in OneDrive or you can put them in SharePoint.
Mm.
Essentially, this is your context that you can add, right? So you can add individual files or you can add SharePoint sites or OneDrive documents and or public websites, a combination thereof. Now, once you do that, that becomes your grounded data source. So no matter what uh, the public source would say, it wouldn't look for the public information, it will only look at that data. Now, those documents could be PDFs, and sometimes you also have a little handwritten stuff. It does OCR, Copilot does OCR as well. So a lot of that data set then becomes your ground truth for the response. And you can also, through system prompting, further restrict how it responds in those scenarios. And you can say things like, when there is a conflict between 2 policy documents, which one supersedes? How do you navigate this and how do you navigate that? We see a lot of that, especially in the court, in the judicial system. Like Dave and I talk to courts all the time because there's federal policy, there's state policy, there's local county
Hmm.
policy, and so how do you sort of
Like
navigate
which
and figure
one?
out which one takes precedence and things like that? And so you can do all that through system prompting. And
So
then I'm going to just go ahead and hit the create button, and I'm just going to show you real quick because I have one other agent to build and how
There
this
was
will
a
show up.
question.
Yeah.
yeah, no, watching this, I mean, I had a question and I think I know the answer to it, and then it leads to another thought. But so like I could create an agent to search the internet on a weekly basis, and like every Monday morning, give me a short update of what's going on in fire service technology.
Yeah.
Just like a 2 word blurb for not, but like a 1 sentence blurb for each article it reads, and it search the internet on a weekly basis, show me what's going on, right? So that leads me to ask the question. There's several industries out there that send weekly emails that do that. Are they using an AI agent to probably collect those blurbs and put them out there and email them out to you?
Are they? I
It,
don't know. Could they? They absolutely could.
I mean,
Um,
back in the day, they would have been using scripts and scraping to be able to pull all that together and then put it into a digest, but certainly can do that now. It's democratized. Anybody could do it with an agent. And one of the really interesting things when you talk about that kind of information, Chief, that I've seen done a lot is you think about a county commissioner's meeting or a city council meeting or maybe even a state agency. Those are all recorded.
Yeah.
So you can now just run an agent over top of it and say, just tell me anything that's going to impact my budget, anything I should care about. And you just get a digest of it instead of having to watch, the paint dry, listen to people debate stuff in the legislature.
You mean those are interesting or meetings?
Not sure. So
Uh,
once I've built this, I
Yours
could
is so much
actually,
faster than mine. I'm gonna say that, Sai. I feel like when I go into Best Buy and I
mhm.
use like the little model phone and it's like super fast,
yeah.
mine's still going. I don't know if it's the government computer or what, but yours is like lightning speed compared to me. But I'm gonna sit and watch and be quiet.
I don't know about that, but we can probably dig into that offline. So once I've built it, I could actually share this with specific users within my tenancy. I could share with anyone within my organization, or I could just have access to this agent, right? So that's another way to do it. Once, but again, there's some licensing considerations along the way as you share the agent with others and such. We can talk more about that another day. But that was the first agent. Personal productivity, I would fit that under personal productivity, essentially just building out a quick agent with with the M365 Copilot app. You will notice if you're licensed for M365 Copilot, there are some things called declarative agents that are already showing up. These are essentially agents that are part of the toolset ecosystem already, that are pre-built and released by Microsoft. Researcher and analyst are two of those agents that you probably see today. And they are amazing, purpose-built agents. Researcher is exactly what it says it is. It uses a deep research model. And now with Researcher, we're also starting to add other model types, Claude and others. Because again, Copilot for us as Microsoft is just the UI. And what's behind the scenes is it's powered by a whole slew of models. You probably saw Microsoft launch their own first-party models this week as well. And so as this model ecosystem continues to evolve, models are just going to become commodities for us to use. And so that's a whole like um, roadmap behind who's building models and what kind of models are going to be coming out. So the agent's now pinned. I can pin this on top. So I can have it all day, every day as a chief officer and just ask tech questions and nerd out. So any questions on that before I pivot to the next one?
I
And if
want
we
to
have any
say,
audience members that have any questions, go ahead and type them in the chat.
I want to point outside that your system was moving faster than mine because I was doing it wrong. So I just
All
went, I was like,
good.
what am I doing wrong? All of it is the answer. I'm doing all
All
of it
of it
wrong.
is the answer.
Which is why this is recorded. And so anybody watching and you were following along just like I was and trying to keep up, it's recorded. You can stream it later and dial it in and you can come to TSI. Will you be hopefully doing another class live for us,
Yeah,
Si? So
we definitely
another
will.
reason to be at TSI, folks. Just saying.
Yeah.
This is really cool stuff. I'm gonna try again. Keep going.
So we're gonna jump into this other tool set we talked about. It's called Copilot Studio, and essentially Copilot Studio is a playground to build low-code agents, right? I'm logged in. I can, I have access to multiple environments. I have this environment where I can build agents. Obviously, this requires a developer license for Copilot Studio to be able to do. So this, I look at Copilot Studio as a way to go from the personal productivity agents to something a little more nuanced, add maybe a little extra workflow or add maybe a little more process behind the scenes or automate a few things or, use certain functionality that doesn't exist out the box in sort of a pre-built method. So these are some possibilities or opportunities. Um, in terms of one of the questions was, hey, what kind of models Copilot uses? I mean, Copilot itself being a SaaS tool, Microsoft continuously manages all the models behind the scenes. So I actually have the option to also do model choice here. So as I'm interacting with this, let's say agent, I want to use a different LLM, a large language model. I can do that. But if I just leave it on auto, we just let Copilot decide what's the best model to use. And honestly, based on the prompt and the question you ask, it actually changes the model it uses behind the scenes to get the answer. Because if the prompt is a little more complex, has a little more nuance in it, it picks up a deep research model versus a very simple question to probably use a standard GPT-5 based model. All right, going back to Studio. Again, I want to build something, and now I want to build something a little different. So I was again thinking of, hey, what do I build? And I want to build, let's say, I want to help interagency fire organizations prepare for wildfire season by providing readiness checklists, resource coordination, and communication support. Use credible data sources like NWS, and IFC, and others um, as reference. I'm just going to basically start with that, and I'm not going to give it any more detail just to see what baseline it comes back with. Again, very similar model. I put a prompt, have it come back with a baseline, and then I kind of work off of it. One of the struggles that I've always had, and I don't know if you all have had the struggle, is when I'm told to write a document or when I'm told to create a presentation or I'm told to do anything, I have a really hard time starting. But once I've started, I'm like all in. I can keep going. And I think for me personally, AI has helped me get past the starting uh, point. I don't know if you all have faced that, but curious.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Starting anything, just getting the motivation, and you're correct. Once I kind of get the ball rolling, then I get excited, like now, and I'm just now I'm in it, and time will just keep going.
Yeah. So this just came back. Hey, it called it a wildfire readiness coordinator. Uh, it said the description that I gave. Now I can choose again model choice. I can put like basic GPT-5. GPT-5 actually is pretty darn good. I mean, GPT-5 I think was really took like what was in GPT-4 like to a whole new level. We thought GPT-4 was awesome. 5 has got some really well structured, defined, and understanding of the prompting mechanism. Again, some basic grounding rules. It's got official sources, support communication, coordinate responses. Um, this is an interaction example. And then look at that. Knowledge sources, it made some recommendations now
Hmm.
of what knowledge sources I want to pick. I'm going to add NIFC. I'm going to just basically say add to agent. I'm going to add weather.gov, just saying. I'm going to probably add the USDA one as well. Now, on top of this, let's say I had some readiness checklists within my own department. I could add those as knowledge bases. So I just basically go click on knowledge. I could again point it to a SharePoint repository. I could point it to a database if I had a knowledge database that I have of my checklists and work. I could add it to external systems. I could upload an Excel file if I had it in an Excel file or some sort of a document. I could actually point it to an Azure AI-based search index. And search index essentially is something that is developed with professional coding, and that search index then is a rich context of a knowledge base that I can then point that to. And this is where the pro code stuff comes into play. And then I mean, it's got a whole bunch of other connectors. I could actually build a custom connector into a staffing application or some other third-party database or an operating picture application as well. Or I could just use an API-based connector. Anyways, so those are like options that start becoming available as you go from just personal productivity to now a little bit on the low code. Now, again, I've not touched code. I've not written Python scripts or C++ or anything. I'm still clicking and pointing.
You mean
Um,
snake.
yeah,
You mean
I'm
snake.
not, sorry,
You mean snake.
that's right.
I
I'm
embarrassed Cy one time. We were talking about coding, and I was like, I just found out there's more than
like
one coding language, and one of them is called Snake. And Cy looked at me and rolled his eyes.
exactly that. Um, I could add this to a contextual database. I know this term MCP gets thrown out a lot through API. I won't go into what MCP is.
Mobile command
First,
post.
yeah, exactly. That's your term, it's MCP. Um, now, here's the thing. You mentioned, Scott, earlier the trigger. Now I could add a trigger.
Okay.
I could add an action. I could add those, hey, if this happens, do this, and if this happens, do that. And again, I just want to keep calling this out. None of this will work without a human in the loop.
Hmm.
You want to make sure no matter what you're doing on the left is you're testing your agent constantly. You're constantly iterating and making it better. You review the responses from AI. You take that information, feed that back into the loop, make it better. Those are important practices that we have to take into consideration as we're building these agents.
Yeah,
Uh,
so I think we've got two questions so far, and I think we've answered both of them. It's like, how do you choose
oh,
the models for Copilot? Is this linked into the licensing being used? But you said auto is just choose auto and let it choose itself. And then the other one that Dave just kind of answered, when you're building an AI agent like this, how do you handle the garbage in, garbage out problem? What does a good
That,
review
yeah.
process look like to make sure the agent's outputs are actually accurate?
Yeah. You want to make sure, I mean, none of this will work without good quality data, right? Like, so absolutely spot on. You have to make sure you're pointing at the right data set. Now, there's a whole discussion on authoritative data sets, and I'll just leave that outside the scope of this Tech Talk Tuesday. But data sets are continuing to evolve. Information is continuing to evolve. The role of AI, honestly, is to surface up information. It's not really to make those authoritative decisions. It's really up to the human in the loop to make those authoritative decisions.
So
So
cool.
as I'm doing this here, I can actually test this. So how can I help? Hey, help me create a, what do you want? What kind of, what a readiness checklist?
Yeah, for fire trucks or whatever, anything.
I don't know. Let me come up with something. Um, as it's doing it on the right side, it's telling me what sources it's using. It's actually telling me its thought process. This is the most important thing because you are now able to fact check and validate how this is responding, what data it's using, but most importantly, how it's thinking through that. This was just a simple knowledge search, and it says I looked at the knowledge and I came back with results. It basically looked at the readiness checklist, vehicle inspection, pump water, equipment inventory, safety gear, communications documentation. It used that based on the USFS preparedness review information from NIFC. So you'll notice already that I am using the sources that I asked it to use.
Mm-hmm.
I could also do a whole bunch of like uh, evaluation testing on this. So I could create a bunch of test cases. Remember those old test cases that we used to create for enterprise applications? Like I could stick a whole bunch of test cases and say, hey, I want the agent to pass through all these different tests to make sure that it clears and gives me the results that I'm looking for before I'm able to take that information and use that in a meaningful manner. Um, I could do that through the test scenario, and then I could publish and track
I,
performance and how it's being used, etc. But go ahead,
and
David.
I would just add on the testing too. If you think about this as a process where your operations people are working with your IT people or somebody who's doing the agents for you, who may or may not be as deep of an expert as you are in what you're trying to accomplish, they can use that test evaluation set to
Mm.
create relevant questions and relevant scenarios, even though
Correct.
they're not an expert. And that way they start to get a good output without having to constantly, drag somebody in from the firehouse to make sure they're asking the right kind of question.
Spot on. I think the testing phase is probably the most important phase of the build. I mean, these days anybody can build anything, but testing and making it operational is a whole different ballgame. And I think this is probably where most of your intellectual capital, because again, like Chief Roche is like, how do you think on a daily basis? Like, what decisions do you make? What kind of data do you refer?
Yeah.
That's the operational intelligence. Um, Agents don't have that out the gate. They have what's objectively available through documents and data sources, but they don't have what you have in terms of experience and mindset and how you think. And so you want to constantly challenge these things to come up with like, okay, look around this corner, look around that corner. What kind of answers come back?
I think that's extremely important too, because there could be something that the computer says, hey, this is the way it needs to go, or it's what we need to do, but it doesn't understand maybe the culture in your community
Mhm.
or the local politics in your community. And you're like, hey, like I know the model says this, but I know that over there is going to be a huge issue. So Sai and Dave, that's one thing I appreciate from this podcast so far is how you keep reiterating the importance of the human and making sure that you're verifying and you're looking and you're reading and you're teaching it and not just depending on whatever it tells you, that's what you're going to go with. Keep the human in the loop. If there was ever a theme for this podcast, I think that's what's important is to keep that human in the loop.
Dave, anything you want to add? Or
I
as
mean, maybe touch a little bit. If you go back to the well, you're on the right screen. Never mind. So if you look across at those tabs as you're building this out, so you think about the first agent that Sai built, where he was in Agent Builder, and it had a subset of these, right? You could give it some knowledge, you could turn some things on and off. This is the next level of that, where it gives you a lot more detail and control so that you get those different knowledge sources. You can start adding tools like these model context protocol servers, etc., agents where you could add other agents. So you start thinking about agents relying on other agents, because one big beautiful agent to control them all isn't necessarily the way to go. Sometimes that's the right answer, but sometimes you need things that have specificity, and then they could call on each other to share knowledge. So a group of experts.
Mhm.
Topics. So if you're familiar with the old style chat bots, right, where you basically called up and it was a workflow tree. If he says yes, say this. If it says no, say that. If you get to a maybe, just put them back into the loop. Well, now you can combine those two things with topics. There's some that come out of the box and then some that you can create so that you get very specific questions. You get very specific answers. So you continue to ramp up the precision of the way the agent is interacting by kind of intermixing the old school chatbot with the agentic AI grounded on your data. And then evaluations we already covered. Analytics is all about how's your agent being used, how frequently, by whom, that kind of thing. And then channels, where are you going to publish it? You're going to put it on a website? You're going to stick it in Teams? You're going to put it in M365? So it just gives you all that additional control. So yes, we can build one of these in just a few minutes, but you also can spend days really working through this process and build something that's really precise and a little complex. So don't sell it short. You really can get to a very robust system through this interface.
So trying to think of some example use cases, and then I'm trying to think of like weekly reports that you'd want for your fire department. Say you're using SharePoint or Teams for some of your storage stuff, like accident reports. Could you do like a weekly report? You come in every Monday morning and it gives you a detailed or a summarization of accidents over the past week. You could, is
Yes.
that something you could do it for?
Yes. So one way to look at it is I think agent orchestration is a thing that we haven't even scratched the surface on, right? That's sort of what I'm showing here is this concept of connecting an agent to another agent and then connecting that to another agent and creating these child agents to a parent agent. That's really the workflow automation, the thing that you're talking about. So let's say on Monday morning, I want a dashboard sitting in my inbox. And that dashboard should contain data from records management, staffing, multiple systems. And I want the data to be combined and I want certain metrics and information to be shown. I could have an overarching agent that controls the workflow. I could have a child agent that picks up the data from the staffing system. I could have a child agent that picks up the data from RMS. I could have another agent that does certain things based on some policy data. They all have their own grounding and they all have their own sort of like processes that they need to adhere to, some system prompts they need to adhere to. You pull all that information together, and your master orchestrator is then collecting all that and publishing that out through an action to an inbox. That is really where productivity comes into play.
In what used to take weeks and months in coding through Snake, I can now I can now just do in a matter of a day, hours or days, and create this program for myself.
Yep. I also have these other settings, setting up information, security guardrails, who has access to it, where I want access to it. Um, you know, I have this concept of agent skills. Skills allow an agent to use other agents to help navigate certain topics, right? So uh, agents, essentially every agent in the world of security ecosystem, which is where we're all heading towards, is in enterprise management of agents, is every agent's got an ID. That agent ID is essentially its authoritative identity of how you identify that agent. And
So
now as
like
you start
Bob,
connecting those agents
it's a
together,
name. So we our agent. This is Bob, Agent Bob.
correct.
Yep.
Okay.
And then
And
you
not only that, but
Mhm.
not only do you have that with an identity, but it adheres to policy and rule through a certain order of operations. So if Dave doesn't have access to that and the agent does, when I try to use the agent, it's only going to give me access to the things that I have access to.
Oh
And then
wow.
it's fully auditable as well, right? It's just like another person on your network. You can see everything that agent did. You can limit its ability to do things, and
Yeah.
it can limit based on your role-based access control if you're interacting with it. So you really do get this multi-layer security process.
We got a
Yes.
few questions that let's see
Yeah,
if we can
so
get to before because we're already coming up on an hour. What is an AI skill? How do you give your agents skills?
yeah, I think we just kind of touched on skills a little bit.
Okay.
And again, this is also a topic in itself. A little bit on your skill definition is also a little vague, right? A skill could be something as simple as, hey, do this task, or a skill definition in this context is you're combining a bunch of capabilities together as one. So that's, what I would say. I did want to mention voice is a whole thing that's like we never talked about, but all these agents and the prompts could be voice enabled. So
Okay.
very
Can
cool.
you elaborate more on channels viz if I choose WhatsApp? Will my users be able to interact with the agent via WhatsApp?
Is channel a WhatsApp a channel? I haven't tested WhatsApp, I'll be honest. I don't think in the government ecosystem, I don't know how this will work. In the commercial ecosystem, I think you can publish an agent to WhatsApp, but I am pretty certain you should be able to. But there's probably a method around how the agent consumes credits as the users use it. So there'll be some sort of a credits mechanism of user interaction with the agent, and that decrements some AI credits along the way. So
Yeah,
I haven't
and
tested
you'll
it.
notice that there's a warning triangle that some channels aren't available, like our administrative team in IT locks us down to just those ones at the top. We can put them in SharePoint, M365, and Teams. We can't publish them out to Facebook, places like that. So there is an IT level of control over which channels are available.
And the reason for that is data loss. Want to make sure that data doesn't get exfiltrated to other systems and you don't accidentally start exposing data that you shouldn't be exposing. So,
Fair enough.
You
And then
know,
finally,
somebody
go
Oh,
ahead,
go
Dave.
ahead, Scott. Somebody
Uh,
brought up a good point the other day. Hey, how do I tell my customer that they can absolutely make sure that this doesn't happen? And I'm like, well, it's a little bit like screenshots. I can block you from taking a screenshot, but I can't stop you from pulling out your phone and taking a picture of the screen and then sharing it. So a little bit needs to go back to policy and enforcement and the
Hmm.
integrity of the organization.
okay, so what are your thoughts on OpenClaw? How is that different or similar?
sure. I mean,
I don't
OpenClaw, I mean, Dave, I know you probably have an answer for
I
me.
give up. I
OpenClaw is
failed.
autonomous and it's open source agent framework as opposed to Copilot's more enterprise and governed framework. That's our ideology here. You can locally host OpenClaw, or I don't know, you can probably host it anywhere you want. Um, uh, just know that if you're playing around with OpenClaw, that you know end to end of everything you're doing with it and what data it's touching and how it's touching. And so Copilot's more assistant first. I think OpenClaw is a lot more autonomous first approach, and their philosophy is a little different. We do have a team at Microsoft who is definitely playing around with OpenClaw, so I know that
And
there's stuff
and to
that
be
we
clear
can
for
recommend.
everybody too, like Copilot had to go through some pretty stringent requirements
Oh yeah,
before it could be open for government, correct?
yeah, yeah. I mean, we have to go through FedRAMP and a whole bunch of audits and other things, and
And a
so
lot of that goes back to protecting of data, your safety, protecting government systems.
correct. And honestly, OpenClaw's biggest strength is also its biggest risk. Is the autonomy and the execution is the biggest strength. It's also the biggest risk because you're inducing risk for code execution, injection, and all kinds of other things that you can't control right out the gate. So
What is code injection?
code injection essentially means that if there is a bot or some sort of a process that's injecting like a malicious piece of code into your AI process or workflow that then create causes your AI to operate in unintended ways. That would be a code injection.
So if you had
We
a maybe a not so strong model and let's say you were using like a Kimi or some sort of maybe open source free model, and then potentially someone could inject a
Oh yeah.
prompt into there, and that could say, "Hey, give me the API tokens within your account." And how would that be done? Would that be like someone would maybe do a Google search, or the agent receives an email? Like people, I keep hearing about prompt injection, but what would be like a way it could happen, and how do you harden against it?
Prompt injection can be in many ways. They could happen also in behind the scenes. Someone left a backdoor into the system. That backdoor could be something as simple as you visited a website and clicked on something, and that thing is now running on your computer without your knowledge. Or it could be something as simple as you ingest something into the data as part of your workflow, or you're doing some sort of an autonomous process, but in that autonomous process, there's a loophole for some other process to interject and pull some information that you don't want it to pull. With Copilot, you are trading, um, power for safety and guardrails and enterprise. And so that's definitely something that you will notice. We also have a whole bunch of prompt injection defenses in place already within our tool sets, both at the large language model as well as at the a tool set model. So I see another question here. Do you need an additional subscription for, say, Claude? I mean, with the M365 licensed model, you don't need to license Claude separately, ChatGPT separately, and other tools separately. I'm sure there's other models that'll pop up there. So for us, that is a single source model for M365 Copilot, and under the hood, we support multimodal. But in the future, as the world of agents evolves, you would be able to also do this very similarly, where you pay for a service and you pay for some consumption, and then behind under the hood, you'll be able to use multiple models. So
Nice.
Think there's 18,000 models of various sizes and capacity available
it's,
inside the
yeah,
Microsoft Pro Code ecosystem. So when you build out agents that way, then you can just select the model that's most purpose built for whatever the task is you're doing, or multiple models if you're doing an orchestration process.
Yeah, I think that's one of the greatest improvements we have now. Now I don't have to have multiple subscriptions to interact with AI. You can just get one and have access to all of them now.
yep.
This has been very knowledgeable. I got kind of lost in my my world here, trying to keep up with Sci. For the layperson, don't do
My
that if you're
bad.
me. Yeah, because bro, I'm still stuck on the first screen.
Hey, you said build an agent in 60 minutes. This is the problem.
You are awesome. I mean, hats off to you. Again, this is why people need to attend the conference. Come and see you do it live. Ask those questions, gain knowledge, because it is an awesome tool that can make our lives a lot easier.
Yeah.
I appreciate the opportunity to come and do this. I think between Dave and I, we build a ton of these for different customers, and we learn a lot. I think I learned a lot today about some through this process. I learned a lot about some what kind of sources I could use for some of this. I am actually going to continue to build the wildfire readiness coordinator and see if I can make that into something that we can probably
We need you to build the Tech Talk every day one too. Don't stop.
that's right. I gotta give it personas. I gotta put a Scott Roseberry persona, a Will Brochus persona, and a Kevin Sofen persona
Boy,
into it.
mine's just gonna have a smart mouth.
Mine's not gonna have
All
any
talk,
hair.
no bite.
Yeah, I'll have a bald persona.
I have muscles. Scott, you got muscles. I don't have muscles.
That's right. That's
Man, that
awesome.
was great. Well, if
Yes.
anyone's going to be at FDIC, the Next Gen Tech Summit's going on. That's the Tuesday, Wednesday. So definitely make sure to hit Scott, Will, or myself up. We will for sure be there.
That's right.
There's some conversations and panels and workshops going on around all things AI. Then obviously TSI is coming up. It feels like it's right around the corner already. Not necessarily. We still got a little time, but December 6th, 7th, and 8th in Denver, Colorado this year. So really going to be great hitting up the Mountain West area this time. But Cy and Dave, any sort of final thoughts, comments, mic drops of future events that people should be aware of from your guys' end?
I would just say use AI. I mean, get familiar with it, get comfortable with it. Like it's okay to be wrong, but just get in there and use it because you can't get good at anything that you don't use.
No, I don't have anything to add to that. Use it, experiment. That's how you get good.
Use AI to learn AI. I learned that the wiser
I do
man.
it every day.
Yeah, I mean, it's true though. I mean, I get in there, you got to get in there. Just there's lots of great YouTube videos and podcasts, so you can start learning stuff and just start playing with it and try it and trial and error.
Yeah.
You know.
I thought I was decent with it, Scott. I got to go back to drawing board, man.
Well, Kevin's inspired me. Kevin's starting to do a lot, so he's kind of turned me on to a couple things that I've been playing with. So I'm really impressed with what I've been able to do. I don't know how to code, but I've been writing programs.
Nice.
Awesome.
This is the future. Preet from CPSE says you will not lose your job to somebody. You will not lose your job to AI. You will lose
Yes.
your job to someone who can use I think that is the probably moving forward. Now's the time to learn it, folks. It's not going anywhere. Use it. It's a tool.
Well
Well,
said,
thank you
everyone.
guys.
Thanks again.
Have a great
Another
rest of your Tuesday.
hour flew by. So.
Take care.
See y'all. Gonna give us music.